Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Brimstone Coaching Podcast. My name is Kurt Busch. I am one of the co-founders and one of the coaches here at the Brimstone Coaching Group. I'm here today, not just with my friend and co-founder, Chris Godfredson. How are you, Chris?
Doing well, Kurt. I'm pretty excited about this today.
Yeah. It's always fun to have a guest. We have a guest with us. We have Ursula Taylor with us. How are you, Ursula?
I'm great. Thanks, Kurt.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So, for the listeners, Ursula, she's a consultant advising and supporting clients in efficiently and effectively navigating tension or conflict, and ultimately mitigating the cost and uncertainty of internal and external disputes. She is a former accomplished litigation attorney who now operates her consultancy called Conflict Reimagined. Ursula also facilitates leadership development and team building through things like workshops and seminars. She sees conflict as an opportunity to strengthen individuals, teams, and organizations. Conflict resolution, Ursula, is like right up our alley. And when we found out there's a chance to talk to somebody that is a professional conflict resolver with teams and people, we just felt like we needed to talk a little more. So thanks for jumping on with us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So tell us a little bit more about you and Conflict Reimagined and what is it about this work that gives you life?
Hmm.
Yeah, it absolutely gives me life. I love that you said it that way. So, yeah, I practiced commercial litigation for 17 years, worked at every size law firm, just always felt like a little bit unsettled, but thought the way out is up. Got to a
Hmm,
point where I grew my own practice and specialty and actually started my own firm.
hmm,
Where I found myself is with this knowing and understanding that I'm not really resolving disputes. I mean, there is a business function for litigation. There's a place and a time, but I think we resort to it too quickly and too often, and it's
Hmm.
not justified by the cost, the uncertainty, or the result. I mean, for most parties who are litigating or contemplating litigation, the biggest risk they face is having to go all the way through discovery and trial and having to endure that cost.
hmm,
Yeah.
And I'm an intuitive person. I've always been an intuitive person. It's why I was a good lawyer, but I could see that what was actually driving the dispute is not something that's going to be even addressed within legal
Hmm.
process. Because
hmm.
every dispute comes from human emotion of some form, some relationship where there's
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
human
Yeah.
emotional aspects to it. And within legal process, what we seek to do is ignore and repress that.
Hmm.
And what ends up
Hmm.
happening is that the dispute just goes and goes and goes until the coffers run out, until the litigation budgets run dry. And then it's like, okay, let's have a settlement conference because
Yeah.
now the fear of losing, the fear of continuing outweighs whatever fear-based emotion had them in the conflict to begin with. So the most important thing is really understanding and honoring that. You can swirl all day long around facts, laws, and arguments. But if you're never creating space to actually find and release some of the emotion and get some clarity around what's really at issue, then you're just gonna spin, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that. If I can ask a question, Kurt, I want to jump in and say, like,
Yeah.
so as you got clearer on this, that you're never going to settle the dispute because we're going to repress the emotion and really the human side of this. Uh, Was that learned over time? Did
Hmm.
your proclivity or your desire to actually resolve conflict, did that emerge over time? How did you get
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. I mean, I think I started off at like 24, 25 years old in law school thinking that the way to resolve disputes is to put on a suit and like appear more elevated about it and talk to a
Mm,
judge in a robe in a
Hmm.
courtroom and like, look,
yeah,
we're doing this in this like prestigious way. We must be doing it right. And
right.
no, it's the same, it's the same stuff, uh, just dressed up a little bit differently. And so it was sort of this, I think nothing's wasted, right? The skill sets that I gained in
For
that
sure.
career and in that process in school and beyond are all useful to me now and will continue to be useful to me. It was kind of I think, a slow process, and it was both a professional and a personal evolution. Like
Mm,
I really had to live it and sort
mm,
of go through it in my own personal life and have my own kind of personal evolution and sort of change and shifts, as you will. Um, and so I really live what I preach in my own life and in my own relationships. So that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I think what I hear you say is without addressing those human things, the emotions, that this will just continue to be conflict, even after a lawsuit, even after that is settled, there will continue to be conflict. Is that fair? Am I hearing you say that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for science nerds out there, you can unpack this like in terms of quantum physics. We know from quantum physics that everything is energy. We even know that our thoughts and our emotions have an energy. And we know about the law of attraction, that like energy attracts like
Hmm.
energy. And that the frequency or the energetic levels like vary between denser, lower fear-based emotion, like
Yeah.
scarcity or pride or apathy, greed, these are the drivers of conflict. But that left unchecked is just going to perpetuate and
Yeah.
amplify and continue. And we know that from our human experience, right? Like we know if we're having a bad day and maybe we get a parking ticket on our way into work and we go into work and we're like crabby with one of our
Yeah.
coworkers and then that person can pass that along and then all of a sudden our kids and it's like this chain reaction. It's we live that. If we start noticing and observing ourselves, we live
Yeah.
that every day. We pass it
Yeah.
along. We also feel how like more elevated emotion is also infectious. So it's all about awareness and consciousness and a willingness to be courageous enough to be like, yeah, I want to look at what my piece or my thread. Anyone in a conflict has I call it a thread because I don't want to
Yeah.
like, you know, I really try to stay away from blame or fault. Actually, that's
Yeah.
that's a whole nother topic. But
Yeah.
everybody has a thread, and if you're willing to look at your thread and kind of unravel your thread, you get a bit more clarity. And then we can skip right into the more strategic, practical stuff that I know as a litigator, negotiation strategy and litigation budgets and what would that look like and what would that cost and what would that path be?
Yeah. Yeah. That's super interesting. So, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Um, so there's significant overlap between your philosophy and our coaching philosophy with different language, but significant overlap. You talked about everybody having a thread. We might say that everybody contributes to the current situation they're in. And usually when Chris and I ask someone, what is your contribution to the current situation? Usually it's met with either defensiveness or sort of an aha, like, oh, I don't know that I've ever thought that I was contributing because the problem
Yeah.
has to be someone else. How does that go? Like when you ask people to think about their thread, how, how is that in general? Like, what is that
Yeah.
process like?
It's such a really great question, right? Because if you just come right in there, I mean, you've got to kind of get some buy-in around some like foundational
Yeah.
principles. And I just touched on one of them, and it's a big one. Blame and fault are not real. They're not real.
Mm,
And I'll
yeah.
tell people at the get-go, look, I don't see blame and fault. I just see fear and feelings. So
Mm,
your blame and fault, you can
yeah.
vent to me. I'll create space for that. You're welcome to do it. And I want to do that with you because I think people need that to kind of get under it. But it's really just about, I mean, what first thing I have to do is have like, and I'm sure you know this from your work too, is be super grounded and super self-aware. Like
Yeah.
when
Yep.
something's touching me, when it's like kind of like hitting on like having some self-awareness of like what my own stuff is, right?
Yeah.
So knowing when I'm getting affected by the story that's happening in front of me so that I can kind of come back to center and not perpetuate the energy, if you will. So
Yep.
my self-awareness, my groundedness is key. And then creating the space for people to sort of maybe it starts with a lot of blame and fault. But I try to get buy-in around the idea, a ground rule, if you will, that we're going to suspend it. We're going to
Mm,
pretend, if you will, that it doesn't exist. And we're just going to try
yeah.
to cultivate awareness around you and them and like what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, what part do you play? What part did they play? If this is systems thinking and from our perspective, and I play a part, you play a part, and I'm to blame, you're to blame, nobody's to blame, everybody's to blame. I'm like, so if that's true, then how do we drill down on that is really true in this situation. And then I would say, like, I loved how you said that you see all of these as opportunities, right, to really engage in resolving the conflict. And that's, I think, when we can help people get to that place, like that's a secret sauce. It's not but it's one of them, right? So, like,
Right.
when you talk about opportunity, what more would you say about that today?
Yeah, I think tension or conflict is this beautiful opportunity because it's what it is. It's a signal, it's a flag, it's a,
Mm,
hey, pay attention, there's something here. Where we get lost is we think that the something here is the drama or the need to affect or compel or persuade or control our
mhm.
environment or other people. And the opportunity is actually within us. Like we have the opportunity to see what's triggering or touching us and chip away at that a little bit. And the miracle that happens is if you can learn how to just be in the energy of that and not the drama and the story, then you can release
Yeah.
some of it and then get clarity around your actual more practical strategies. Lawyers skip straight to the practical strategy without dealing with this precursor stuff. And that's why I think litigation is ineffective at conflict resolution most of the time. But I think
Yeah.
what I'm talking about, you guys know what I'm talking about. Mental health practitioners know what I'm talking about. People who are more therapeutic or healing know what I'm talking about. But we haven't integrated this into legal systems or structures. We haven't
Yeah.
really integrated, like, how does this affect our bottom line? How does this affect the
Mm,
multi-trillion dollar litigation industry that takes away from business functions? So
Yeah.
that's the bridge that I'm really trying to cross with my work.
yeah. Yeah. So maybe can I back us up just a little bit?
Sure.
I don't know. Are you an Office fan, Ursula?
The Office?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't
Yeah.
watched it in a while, but of course.
So I am, Chris is. There is a scene, I think a whole episode called Conflict Resolution. And
Mm.
in it, Michael Scott takes this binder and follows the steps to get to a win-win-win. And it's a silly episode, right? It's Michael Scott asking the one participant, "Would you like to seek a win-win solution or a win-lose?" Just a silly thing. If that's my understanding, if that's the listener's understanding of what conflict
Mm.
resolution is, like how would you replace that understand, like define conflict resolution for you as you engage it with teams and people?
Yeah, I haven't seen that episode, but like Michael Scott, I mean, where he gets with it in terms of, if you could end up at a place where you are looking at it from 20,000 feet away, like let's say you can just zoom up and like look
Yep.
down in on this from a completely broader, different perspective. Most conflicts are an office episode. They
Yeah.
are a joking
Yeah.
matter. I mean, I hate to make light of
Mm,
these things because when we're in it, it doesn't feel that way.
Right.
But
yeah.
if you can zoom way up, it is kind of like really like, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's where you want to end up. That's where you want to land. So I love that. But for me, in terms of how I work with people or teams, it's really highly customized, and it's
Mm.
kind of a combination of kind of empathy and intuitive nature, fact gathering, one-on-one interviews, group discussions, whatever's really needed or required. I mean, am I helping an organization who is contemplating filing a litigation and wanting help with negotiation strategy and those final steps and that final decision making? Am I helping someone who is in a litigation who wants to
Mm.
keep a resolution oriented perspective on it and have a professional who's dedicated to that mindset? Or am I just helping leaders and teams who are maybe at an inflection point in their business
Yeah.
growth and wanting to really kind of tackle what they feel are some internal tensions? So it's
Yeah.
going to be highly customized to the group and the situation and the problem, but it's a combination of one-on-one interviews where I'm getting buy-in around ground rules, buy-in around, what I talked about in terms of blame fault. And really what I need that's most important is just a yes. Like, yes,
Mm,
I want to do this. Yes, I'm willing to be
yeah.
courageous enough to go inward a bit, be a little vulnerable, let down some of my armor, and really
Mm,
unpack this because the goal is worth it. And as a former
yeah.
litigator, knowing what that costs, and litigation can destroy companies.
Yeah.
And coming from that background, I just think it's an easy sell. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure that sounds like an easy sell. I think for someone who kind of swims in these waters,
Mhm.
that feels like yes, easy sell. Let's dive in. Let's look inward together. What are some of the barriers? Like when you present that and you say to a leader or a team, "Hey, we're going to go inward a little bit." Like, what are some barriers to this work that you're inviting teams into?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the natural human barriers that you would have. I think it's hard to just do it. You can't do it in the abstract. Like there's got to be, I think, a hook in terms of like an example would be I've been working with this executive team. They're at an inflection point in their growth. They already understand that their success and future growth really depends upon their cohesiveness
Hmm.
and the happiness and the well-being and the feelings of fulfillment of the sort of the professionals doing the work. And so that's sort of like built already in their value system and structure, but
Yeah.
it's just not playing out because they're humans, they're fully remote, they're spread across the country, they're really, really busy.
Yeah.
And so, but because their values are sort of aligned to it, they're sort of partway there already. They know
Yeah.
that, and then the founding member of the group also has sort of experienced sort of organizations that have worked and organizations that haven't, right? So with that background, really having lived those lessons. So they're a great client. The in terms of the internal barriers, it's the natural human barriers. And look, you're
Yeah.
not going to change the world in a day. And it's a
Right.
little, and it's a little bit tough because it's hard to kind of see the progress, but it's there.
Yeah.
You do see it. I see
Yeah.
it, and I reflect on it with them. It's just the
Yeah.
little things, the small. All of a sudden, people are speaking up and saying, "Hey, I'm a little nervous about this. Um, I have some fear around this. Can you tell me more?" Whereas before, they would just kind of sit in their space and just perpetuate fear about what's to
Right.
come, afraid to speak up, afraid to share.
Yeah.
So it is all about getting your buy-in every step of the way. Okay, this
Mm.
is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is what underlies it. Do you agree? What do you think? And if I do have moments where people are like, can't do this. This is too all this emotion, all this touchy-feely stuff. And I'm like, okay, like let's stop, let's pause, let's consider that. I mean, you
Yeah.
can run an organization on fear. You can make
Yeah.
decent money running an organization on fear. You can do it. People do it. Is it the highest, best, most competitive, most fulfilling, most abundant way? No. But let's
Yeah.
talk about it. You can
Is
do
it
it.
life-giving? Yeah.
Right. And we'll
Yeah.
have those pauses and we'll have those, let's unpack that. Like, and if that's what they choose, I don't resist or stand in the way, but I do make them
Yeah.
look at it and think about it because they're buying, like I'm never there to tell anybody what to do. I'm not
Yeah.
giving the script. I'm
Yeah.
facilitating their own path forward because they want
Yeah.
to they want to grow something. They want to be abundant. They want to create opportunity for themselves and others. So I'm always bringing them back to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really good. I wonder if we can pause there for just a second, take a little break, and then I want to come back and ask you another question after, as a follow-up to your statement that companies can run based on fear.
Mhm.
I want to unpack that a little bit more
Sure.
with you. So let's
Sure.
take a little break. What if the biggest thing holding you back isn't the challenge in front of you, but the promises that you've made to yourself? At Brimstone Coaching Group, we help teams, businesses, and organizations break through hidden barriers in our Promises Workshop. This is a hands-on experience that helps you and your team identify and replace self-limiting beliefs with purposeful promises that foster growth, confidence, and resilience. You can bring this powerful workshop to your company, nonprofit, or leadership team and start creating a culture of trust, collaboration, and transformation. Visit brimstonecoachinggroup.com to learn more.
Well, welcome back to the Brimstone Coaching Podcast. I'm Chris Godfredson. I'm here with my partner, co-founder Kurt Busch today, and we have a guest. Ursula Taylor the conversation. To this point, Ursula has been riveting. I'm really grateful that you're here and you're sharing your expertise with us. And Kurt was going to ask a question, but I'm preemptive striking his question. And and it's for this one because we use this language often around here that when you see something, you can't unsee it. And I heard you say the same thing a minute ago, but like as you're helping companies and teams and these people that you're working with engage, right, as you take them inward and as they're doing their own work, it's like you're unearthing things. They are unearthing things with your assistance. And then you're just holding it up for them where they can see it. And then they have a decision to make, right? And so, how I think the question is in those moments, what's it like for you and for them? Like when the light bulb comes on, when they see it, what what is that like? What's the experience like?
Mm,
Subtle, really
Mm,
subtle, really
mm,
subtle. It's not a big moment. It really isn't. Like I'll
mm,
see it, and sometimes I'll say, pause the tape. Can we just pause for a minute
yeah,
and
yeah,
just reflect that he just said X to you and you responded and he had anxiety or fear and you just talked about it and that dialogue, the space for that dialogue is what's going to serve you. I know a lot of
yeah,
clients want to bring me in and they're like, we want you to mediate or facilitate or, a discussion because everybody wants their way. They're not getting their way. So let's bring in
yeah,
somebody who's going to help me get my way. And
yeah.
it's not that. It's always awareness, right? So
Hmm.
maybe I'll have some one-on-one talks and I'll get underneath it a little bit with each of them. And then I can sort of direct the conversation to be more about awareness building around fear and feelings
mm,
than agendas and politics and
Yeah.
fear-based sort of manipulation. And it's my ability to hear it, to redirect conversation, to pause the tape, to ask a question. That's the stuff that it is. But intertwined with that is sort of the practical realities of what are we doing from a
yeah,
business standpoint? What is your goal? What are you hoping to get? And
yeah,
making sure we're always getting the buy-in and always weaving it back to that greater business goal.
yeah,
Isn't it fascinating? Like I find often that people will say, like they bought into being part of a team and they were all about the mission and vision of the organization. And as they say, vision leaks and it leaks really fast, or we might be in agreement, but we don't have the counter systems in place that help get people back on track or to be about the same thing, right? And so obviously, this is when conflicts emerge and
Mhm.
the struggle happens. So,
Right, right. And it's all about being able to see where the fear or the fear-based emotion sits. You
yeah,
know, I can always, as an outsider, I can always see it and
mhm,
feel it and hear it in people's voices.
yeah,
And being able to bring that forward is what's hard. It can be hard over Zoom. It's easier in person.
yeah,
yeah,
I lead in-person workshops and we then also do some work over Zoom with people. It's easier in person. But that self-awareness to be able to hear it and then have like create a safe space where they can kind of get under it and feel into it. And then it's about, okay, what are the strategies for
yeah,
noting that when that comes up? Because it's always a pattern or a habit or a thing that repeats.
yeah.
And it's all about that. It's directing them to direct themselves if I'm dealing with an individual or a group or a partnership or whatever it is.
So you use the word fear, and I think that's really appropriate. We would probably use the word threat, like people are responding to a threat or protecting against a threat.
Mhm.
Do you find any? I mean, I know every case is complex and different, but do you find any common ground or any shared experiences of fear that kind of show up in multiple places? Is there a common fear that you find that it
Yeah.
manifests in different ways?
Yeah. I mean, there are common threads. Sort of the fear, imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
Poverty, scarcity, I call
Yeah.
fear of going broke or bankrupt.
Yeah.
Fear around money is a big one.
Yeah.
Um, fear around, not getting what you want, fear that someone else will take advantage of you,
Yeah.
fear that somebody else will get their way, kind of getting underneath all of that and answering the question, but what do you need? What do you need
Yeah.
from a
Yeah.
business function? What do you need to get out of this potential litigation? What do you need from, and if it's making someone wrong, being right, well then, and you're stuck on that and you want to prove and show, then have at it and spend your, entire budget trying to
Yeah.
prove and show and be right and make someone wrong. But the thing that I love about like businesses is they're not in the business of making someone wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody's bottom line is supported by being right, making someone wrong, being the
Yeah.
victim,
Yeah.
being right. You can only
Yeah.
hang on to that for so long before somebody somewhere in the chain of command is like, how about we just do the work that we
Yeah.
set out to
Yeah.
do?
Right.
So that's why I like working with businesses because there's a business function, at least like businesses that, are managed by maybe at least a handful of people that are
Mhm.
have their eye on the ball. It's
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
be able to bring them back to what they really need.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I love that. I mean, that feels like such a helpful starting place. Um, I'm gonna ask a question. You can always say no. You mentioned earlier about like keeping yourself grounded, and as you were talking about these fears, I was sort of starting to feel some anxiety of sitting in a room of people that are feeling fear and how difficult that must be to stay grounded. Would you be willing to say any more? Like, are there practices that that you find helpful, ahead of time that keep you that way? Like, how do you stay grounded? Like, what does that look
Yeah.
like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I love that question. I have had to face my own fears in this, right? Like
Yeah.
we often I didn't even realize, but I have held a fear of conflict in my life. I think that's why I gravitated
Mm,
to litigation, to wanting to do it in this higher, more prestigious way. A
yeah.
lot of us have some fear of conflict on some level. So constantly being aware of myself, like, oh,
Mm,
I feel a little anxious in this moment.
yeah.
And like I was working with a group recently and I just said that. Like I did. I felt it come up. It hadn't really come up the entire workshop, but then they had me do this thing where I collected feedback from middle management and then had to give the feedback to upper management all in the same
Sure.
room. It was just like, okay, but
Hmm.
I had to check in with myself like this is kind of a lot even for me who's there as a
Yeah.
conflict
Yeah.
resolution expert who's really on the outside looking in, helping them. But it was just about cultivating my own awareness. It was really just about me
Yeah.
noting it, saying it, feeling into my body. If I needed a break, take a break, and
Yeah.
just kind of bringing everyone, just kind of being. It's a co-creation. It really is a co-creation.
Yeah.
I'm never telling them what to do, but I have to have a lot of awareness of myself for sure, for
And,
sure.
Yeah.
and that would be disarming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my experience is, I think like fear-based things tell us that, well, if you acknowledge that, people are going to resist it, or they're going to think, boy, she doesn't have any idea what she's doing. I thought we were paying an expert. And what's true about that is the authenticity of that is invitational.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm a human being too. Like I'm on my own journey. Like
Yeah.
I'm far more powerful if I can sort of live it with them
Yeah.
and gain some trust by I have to be willing to share. I have to be willing to
Yeah.
be vulnerable too. And in terms of like I have been in a room where with people where I've asked them all to share their fears. That's not for everyone, and it's not for everyone on the first meeting, and it's like something I
Yeah.
worked into with them over months.
Hmm.
But it's definitely takes a little bit of work. Everyone's got to feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. We usually start meetings by asking people to tell us when the last time they cried was. Um, no, I'm just
He's
kidding.
lying. That's not
I'm just
true.
kidding.
That's not true. But like, here's the thing. I mean, so we believe words have power and they matter. And anytime we're in a space, this is just vernacular, and I wonder how you might push against what I'm about to say. And like when there's human beings there, safe spaces are really challenging because there's other human beings there. And like if I'm vulnerable and I'm authentic and I put my heart out there and it gets smacked,
Yeah.
well, I'm less likely to do that, right? So uh, I like to take the perspective is to say, let's create a brave space. Can we take one step beyond our normal level of comfort in pursuit of the resolution to this conflict or the transformation that I'm after? Uh, that has borne some fruit, if you will. Like, um, but I'm also imagining that you're creating plenty of safety just in being authentic, right?
Right.
Where would you push do you see or feel a difference in those two things?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think you're kind of creating a ground rule, like let's have a brave space or a safe
Yeah,
space. And it's a lot of discernment too, in terms of the facilitator, in terms of what I'm doing. You're not going to put a group that's not ready for it in a room to start
yeah,
sharing because there's a risk that they're going to slap each other down and create bigger problems. You might have to back way up and say, here's what we're
yep,
going to do. We're just gonna get to know each other and
Yeah.
we're just gonna create mutual alignments around the values of the organization and the goals of the organization. And then we're gonna work
Yeah.
into some things slowly. It's different speeds for different folks. And then you may have people that you can sort of feel there's like this underlying love and mutual respect. It's just getting glossed over from their own fears and
Mm,
insecurities and their lack of like attention to their relationships. So
yeah.
that's
yeah,
that's really
yep.
where I can be impactful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. Um, Maybe here's the last question I wanna ask you before we let you say a little bit more about how people get a hold of you. Um, I've worked in the corporate world for a good chunk of my career. Haven't in a minute, as the kids would say, but I've seen enough leaders in corporate America that probably would say, "Hey, I know how to resolve conflict. I have this employee conflict or this team conflict, and I just decided who was to blame, and I fixed it." Or you know, I
Yeah, I bet you
I
did.
I said just cut that out, you know? And maybe what they're saying is I quieted conflict. What would you want to say to those leaders, or what would you want to say about the importance of actually resolving conflict versus squashing or stuffing conflict?
Yeah, I think quieting conflict, to the extent it turns into sort of unsaid conflict that's
Yeah,
passive and sort of
yeah,
percolating underneath, but no one is saying anything ever, is the worst kind of conflict. I mean, if
yeah,
you can have a little bit of not an uprising, but a situation that will catch attention and cause you to pause and reflect. And you do actually have your own internal conversation with yourself and pause and reflect. There's great opportunity. If
yeah,
it's just like under the surface, and I've worked in those organizations,
yeah,
you see it. I
Yeah,
feel it. I feel it immediately. No one's talking.
yeah,
No one's
yep,
talking.
yeah,
Everyone's tight-lipped. There's no chit chat. There's no chatter. There's no smiles. There's no jokes. There's
yeah,
no, what are you doing this weekend? It's ice cold.
yeah,
That's that you just feel the energy of it. And so I may have to just split them up because I can just
yeah,
feel,
mhm,
okay, you guys are having some stuff.
yeah,
I don't know what it is, but there's stuff.
yeah,
I know it in a minute.
yeah,
And so having some discernment around that is so important. But to your point about quieting, there's no opportunity to look at it unless you have someone intuitive coming in and eyeing the room
yeah,
and
yep,
creating the
yeah,
spaces for it. There's no opportunity to know about it, but what it ultimately does is it stifles innovation. People are afraid to fail. People are not taking
yeah.
chances. People are not submitting the draft. There's
Mm,
procrastination. There's like a lack of efficiency. There,
yeah.
fear will just cripple an organization. Everyone's afraid
yeah.
to.
The impact is significant. Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the images that we like here, Chris and I together, is the image of a beach ball being held underwater. If I'm trying to stuff an emotion or conflict, it's similar to me trying to hold a beach ball underwater, and I can do it for a little bit, but at some point the hand like gets hard to hold it under, or the deeper I go, the harder it gets. At some point, that ball is coming out, right? That ball is going to come out, and the deeper down it is, the harder it comes up, the more people it splashes. And I love that analogy for a lot of things, and I hear some of that in the way you talk about quieting that conflict is going to find a way to come out, whether it's passive aggressive, whether it's quiet, icy workplace, like that is going to find its way out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also, times are changing. Humanity, I feel, is on the cusp of a big change. I think
Mm,
that's why we're seeing all the chaos that we see in
yeah.
terms of our
Yeah.
politics and everywhere. It's just this outpouring. Everything is coming to the
Yeah.
surface. Everything is pouring out. We have
Yeah.
younger leaders that are unwilling to work in the way that maybe we did in the 90s,
Yeah.
early 2000s, fear-based
Yeah.
organizations where it's just like be quiet and do your job and shut up, and like it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
not as tolerated. And if you want to be competitive, if you want to be innovative, if you want to be in the cutting edge, you've
Yeah.
got to learn how to create the spaces that eradicate fear or allow fear
Yeah.
to be felt and released. It's
Yeah.
all about knowing
Yeah.
where there is fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good. And it has to begin with decision makers,
That's
right?
right. It's a lot.
Leaders have to understand who they are, how they are, and why they are the way they are, or why they do the things they do, especially when they do the things they do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
oh, I'm stirred up now, and I'm not listening to that 26-year-old tell me what to do. Who do they think they are?
Mhm.
And like, no,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
organization conflict will happen. They won't work for you. There will be a leadership vacuum in terms of people will not stay in organizations or
Right,
systems like that. They just won't put up
right,
with it any
Yeah.
longer.
right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't either, and I'm not 26
And the talented
because,
one, the talented ones will leave first.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. Yes.
As soon as systems and organizations understand that people are more than brains on a stick doing a thing, but they're full-fledged human beings with lives and emotions and feelings and brains that have stored in. I mean, she dropped quantum physics in about minute five,
I
Kurt. I mean,
knew I knew you were gonna like
yes, I
that.
was
I
like,
knew you were gonna
wow,
like
like
it.
we're talking quantum physics. I'm kind of partial to neuroscience, but it, all of the stuff, right? I mean, we take it with us,
We
and
do.
and and if we are closed off to the idea that conflict can be an opportunity, we're going to stay stuck and stop. The organization is going to not move up and to the right, but it's going to fail fast.
It's going to fail fast. And then the flip side of it, how much power and opportunity and
Yeah.
innovation and growth. You want to be
Yeah.
the best? Start looking at where you hold fear. Start
Yeah.
exemplifying that for the people who are looking at you. Start
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
in a room full of people, feeling a little
Yeah.
anxious right now. Start
Yeah.
harnessing vulnerability as power. Start
Mm.
start start doing that openly and evolve yourself, evolve your team. You do amazing things. Like in this
Yeah.
time in humanity, at this place where we are in 2025, the
Yeah.
fear mongering is just a recipe for failure. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not
Yeah.
sustainable. It just isn't.
Right. Right. Yeah. We have a colleague, Chris and I have a colleague who's done this work. The work that we're doing has done it for decades longer than we have. And the two of them will say that the highest leverage point in any organization for change is myself, or the
The
highest
way I show up in it.
the
Yeah.
way I show up in it. The most important thing I can do to change my system or influence my system is to change how I show up in it. And I think I hear so much of that in what you're saying too, Ursula.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, I mean, I don't know. I love talking about this. I feel like we could keep going for a long, long time. I feel like we're speaking the same language with some different words. It's just so much fun. But what would you say? How do people get a hold of you? If somebody's listening to this thinking, you know what, my organization or my team could benefit from work with Ursula Taylor, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure, sure. And I'd be happy to chat, do a free consultation and just chat about the organization and the issues with any of your listeners. But I have a website. You can find me through my website. It's www.conflictreimagined.com. My email is just Ursula, Ursula, at conflictreimagined.com. Shoot me a note or go through the form on my website and read about me and take a peek at some of my articles. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find
Hmm.
some of my writings and posts and things there as well.
Yeah, that's really great. I'll put a link in the
Awesome.
show notes in the description for anybody listening or watching on YouTube as well. Um, Ursula, I just want to say thank you again. When you talk about the tide changing, we agree with you and we celebrate that with you. And I think most importantly, we celebrate getting to talk to a colleague that is actually making that happen with the work that you're doing with and for people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So thanks for doing it. Thanks for letting us chat with you. Thanks for the time. Chris,
yeah,
what do you want to say?
Yeah, I think I just celebrate everything that I've heard you say. And we so value people who A, do this work, and B, don't just cookie cutter something that will believe that one size fits all. And
yeah,
because
no,
that's not true. I mean, be,
yeah,
you might have seven habits to do this thing, but what's true about that is like so long as you aren't aware and you haven't plumbed the depths, you won't do those seven things. You won't do one thing, right?
no,
So I yeah, I celebrate the work that you're doing. I celebrate that you stopped litigating and decided that there's value in like real actual conflict resolution. So my
yeah,
hat's
thank
off
you.
to you, and I hope that you have a long successful career and that people that you are able to through your own way of being uh, resolve some of their own conflicts so that the greater conflict might not exist either. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for all of that. And just a final comment. I think as we were unpacking this, it kind of came to me that, most leaders understand the importance of innovation. And when we look back on human history, we see all the change from the Industrial Revolution and beyond and into the technology age and how everything shifted. And I believe that where humanity is right now is at the cusp of another great revolutionary change.
Mm.
But the source of innovation and the leverage point is understanding human
Yeah,
capital, understanding
yeah,
human emotion, understanding the
Yes.
power of
yeah,
of elevating above fear. And that's
Yep.
that's the
yeah,
place where we're going to continue to elevate. And I'd love to lead visionary leaders into that, into being the best they can be.
Yeah.
yeah,
Amen.
yeah,
If we can ever partner with you in any way in some of that work, we'd be happy to have a conversation about that. And uh, when and if we need your services, I imagine you have contact information, Kurt. Good job.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Th
Likewise, likewise.
yeah. Thanks so much for the conversation, Ursula. We'll talk to you next time we talk to you.
Sounds great, Kurt. Thank
That's
you.
right.
Thank you, Chris and Kurt.
Thanks, Ursula.